Today, we're going to be talking about covert narcissism. I know that's a really popular subject that many people have lots of questions. We have devoted quite a bit of time. Oh, and I don't like that view. That is way too close to me. Sorry, everybody. Bear with me as I adjust that. And it's going to be really weird here now for a few seconds. And I'm going to start this over just so that I'm going to start it over now. And then we'll cut off that first part. Today, we're going to talk about covert narcissists. I know that that's a fascinating topic. People have a lot of energy about it. Like, what are they? Why are they so different? How come they're harder to spot? Does that make them more dangerous? What is their end game? What we're used to seeing with narcissistic people is the grandiosity. We tend to associate narcissism with the larger than life, the person who's in the center of the party, talking up everybody, the braggart, the know-it-all. We're used to the CEO who's super confident in his skills, but we don't tend to spend much time or think about the inverse of that. So if you think of the grandiose as more as the extroverted type, there's actually an inverted type, an introvert type, and that would be the vulnerable narcissist, or also known as the covert narcissist. And just like the agenda for the grandiose narcissist is power and domination and control, the end game for the covert narcissist is also domination, power, and control. But it's the inverse of what we typically think about. Instead of using the being in the center of the room, wanting the limelight, bragging up all their accomplishments, thinking that they're the perfect CEO or the perfect leader or that they know best, this person is the perfect victim. And that's why we fail to spot them, is because they use their failures, the fact that life always goes wrong for them, that life is always unfair. They use those tactics for the appeal for supply. That's the supply. Yes, they still want attention, but instead of adoration and admiration, they want sympathy. They want your sympathy. And they're going to compete with you to be the biggest loser in the room. So let's talk about covert narcissism today. I am Dr. Kerry Kerr McAvoy. I'm a licensed mental health clinician with over 20 years of counseling experience, and I'm also a narcissistic abusive survivor. And interestingly enough, I've been thinking about this topic. Have I been in a relationship with a covert narcissist? I've certainly met them. I find their focus on their what goes wrong, all the whining that they do, I find it really exhausting. So I'm usually not one of their perfect. I get rid of them fast. I don't want to put up with all of that. I don't have a lot of like energy to move into that sympathetic vein with them. But I know a lot of us get trapped, and we make this common error. And the error is we think because they're looking for rescue and saving, and because they're focusing on failure, because they're talking about what's going wrong, not what's going right, we think, oh, that's not narcissistic. That's different. I mean, narcissists tend to want to know everything. They tend to be the one who has to show you up and the one-upmanship all the time. We tend to miss the covert narcissism because of the focus is different. So we think, oh, this person shows sympathy. They're looking for sympathy. And even in the beginning, they're sympathetic. So we end up thinking, well, because there's sympathy, maybe that means there's good empathy. And maybe this person's going to be mutually reciprocal. Maybe when I have a bad day, they're going to show up for me because I'm showing up for them when they have a bad day. And there's going to be this really wonderful, supportive relationship. And what you find out, you find out somebody just said, I married one by mistake. And according to him, the whole world was against him. Yes, you find out that once you get into these relationships that, no, there's still only one person in the room. It's just not one person who's the greatest person in the world. It's the one person who's the worst person in the world. But there's still only one person in the room. And that's what throws us off, is we fail to see that. And here's the other thing. They use passive aggressive tactics. So they're more likely that when you try to end the relationship, yes, they may get aggressive with you, but they're more likely to threaten to harm themselves, that they need you, that you're the only person that can be there and they can't live without you. They're more likely to threaten that than they are to actually threaten to, overtly to be aggressive towards you. So what's so very difficult about the covert narcissist is that they also want domination, but they're looking for dependency. They want to make you need them, and they're going to need you to need them all the way to the end, and they're going to cling on to you that way. And they also use passive aggressive strategies more so than the overt narcissist or the grandiose narcissist. For all those reasons, we get confused and we think that we've met someone great, only to find out we've met somebody really toxic. So let's talk about this. And for those of you who are new to me or new to this platform, like I said, I'm Dr. Kerry Kerr McAvoy. Please make sure that we talk about the issues. We're not going to talk about religion or politics. We want to stick it to this topic, and that also that we just kind of keep this nice and civil and pleasant for everybody. So this is a good question that came in. What about people without intimacy? Can you say more about what you mean about that? In what way? They're lacking intimacy in what way? If someone just stares at you what if someone just stares at you instead of communicating? Hey, Charlene, so good to see you. Can you say more what you mean by that, Pineapple Joy? I'm not for sure what you mean. Like, are they awkward? Like they don't know how to have a conversation with you? I mean, you may be somebody who's more introverted in the sense of shy or anxious, or maybe you're with somebody who's struggling with autism, or it could be somebody who's more on the schizotypal end or schizoid personality disorder. So there's a lot of different possible types that would struggle with communication. So I would have to know more about what they're struggling with. So I want to make sure I see everybody's questions here. So I want to kind of raise this one screen up. By the way, if you're struggling in a toxic relationship and you're looking for support, please consider joining Toxic Free Relationship Club. We meet every week for 1 hour and talk about these issues. We meet online, we meet by video, and we open it up for the chat. And so they get 4 hours a month with a professional. We talk about the topics that they're working on, and they support each other, and they also get my advice. We do this once a month. We do this once a week. In fact, I'm going to do this as soon as I get off this call. All right, so more information is coming in. My ex is now married, has been divorced 3 times. And after another failed relationship, of course, it's always the fault of the women he gets into a relationship. It's never anything that he does. Have you noticed that? Have you noticed that narcissistic individuals always offload the blame? Why is that? Well, the reason is when you start to hear about it, hear why the reason they do that, it starts to make a lot of sense. So imagine that you have a cold. I mean, you have a cold, you feel miserable. You get a stuffy nose, you start having a scratchy throat. In fact, I started to get one over the weekend. I have to do a shout out to Tara Blairball. She's at Tara.relationshipcoach on Instagram, on TikTok. And I don't know if she's on YouTube or not. But anyway, her and I have a podcast, Breaking Free from Narcissistic Abuse, and we're spinning off the brand for itself. And so we spent a weekend together. And wouldn't you know, she comes to Austin, she gets into town, and her little one is running a fever back home. So dad had to deal with little one running a fever. And I started to get a scratchy throat. So I poured on the echinacea. But see, I knew something was wrong. I knew that I had a headache. I knew my throat was sore. I knew that I was struggling with something. That's called a condition. And it's the same for mental health issues. When you have like a depression or anxiety, or you're struggling with schizophrenia, you know something's wrong. I mean, I've seen people who've had their first schizophrenic break and they're terrified when they're hallucinating and having delusions. They know something. They know that's not themselves. That's a condition. But personality disorders is a disorder, and they labeled it purposefully. A disorder means that there's something wrong with the way that you relate to the world and the way you relate to relationships, that there's a dysfunction in those interactions, in those dynamics. It's part of you and how you relate. That's the problem. That's why they never say they don't have a problem. That's why they look at you and say, well, you're having the issue with me, then it must be you. You have the problem, because I don't have a problem with me. They're not feeling any discomfort caused by their impulsivity or their lack of emotional regulation or their excessive boredom and jumping from thing to thing, or their struggle with intimacy, or their lack of self-direction. They're not struggling with that personally. That's not a crisis for them. They just see that as who they are. And so as a result, they then think there's nothing wrong with them. If you don't like it, there's something wrong with you. That's why narcissists don't see themselves as having a problem. So let me go back and kind of see what more questions yeah, and they have the same patterns because this kind of ties into what I was already saying. If you see a world in a certain way, like say that you all grew up in a similar kind of home and you had the same kind of rules in that home, you're going to tend to interpret the world in a similar way. You're going to tend to have similar coping mechanisms, right? Because that's the way you all were raised to view. Well, narcissistic individuals see the world competitively. They see it as with real winners and real losers, and that they don't want to be the loser. And by the way, there's no one that's on their side. They don't believe anybody has their back. Not even their partners, not even their parents, certainly not their siblings. Everybody to them, if that person wins, then they're losing. And that ties in with a covert narcissist. Remember I said that they need to be the biggest loser, the biggest victim? So if you have a problem, say you get sick, and suddenly the attention focuses to you because you're ill, well, that's a loss. They're losing. You're winning. You're getting the supply of sympathy. So they compete with you. That's why they will then up their symptoms. They'll suddenly like hurt something, they'll come in and something's really bad, and whatever's wrong with you, they'll outdo it. I'm sure you guys have seen this. If anybody who's been in a relationship with a covert narcissist has felt like, I can't ever be ill, or God forbid I have a surgery, because they're going to then I swear they're going to act like, because whatever happened at work or whatever happened in their relationship with family or whatever, it's going to be 100 times percent worse than me. So there's no support for me because I'm always on my own, because it feels like it's a takeaway to them. That's exactly what's happening. It's competitive. They view the world competitively. Now, what does it look like when you're with a more typical narcissist who's not a covert narcissist? Well, they view it competitively too. So they view your successes as competition. You come home and you get a new promotion. Oh, well, then you're saying somehow they're a failure. You've somehow insulted them. Every good thing that happens to you, they see it as it's a takeaway from them, unless they can use the good thing that's happening to you to get more attention to them. They'll do that. I've seen that as well, where you get something and suddenly they have to tell everybody in the world, suddenly it's not your prize or your special thing, it's their special thing. And so they'll trot it out to everybody they know, so that everybody then responds to them. Hey, way, good job for you having this partner who did this great thing. You'll end up finding that they do that. So it's very, very, very challenging to be in a relationship like this. Yeah, so the end results are, what is their end goal? The end goal is to be the biggest loser. I know, isn't that weird? The covert narcissist has to be the person who has the most going wrong with them. They celebrate their failures. They celebrate the way that you failed. You don't understand. I mean, at first, when you first meet them, no one understood them the way that you understood them, and no one has showed up the way that you showed up. But by the end of the relationship, you're the worst person in the world. You've really failed them. You failed them more than anyone has ever failed them, because they always need to be the biggest loser in the world. And it's so exhausting. For those of us who've gotten into a relationship, we get so exhausted because of it. It is insane. I agree. And they still brag, though. The covert narcissist brags about the failures, about the unfairness. Life is so unfair, and they'll focus on everything that goes wrong instead of focusing on all the things that go right. And exactly, it's very depleting for us who are in this relationship. Very depleting. Yeah, many of you are coming in. I'm totally exhausted. I'm completely wore out. Yes, exactly. There is no end to this. This is going to be a perpetual relationship with them, is always this competition. They always have to come out as the worst. You can never have a bad day. They have a worse day. You can never have a horrible drive home. They have a worse drive home. You can't be sick. They're sicker. It always is a competition. So you end up, so let's talk about, what do you do if that's the situation? You stop competing. Well, how do you do that? Well, it doesn't mean that you stop talking about what's going on with you, but it does mean that you stop looking for them to be invested, because they're not. They're not going to be invested in what's going on in your life. You will always lose in that arena. So you then start to look outside of the relationship for that kind of support. And that's the hard part, because when you start to do that, you're essentially saying that this relationship is no longer the most meaningful relationship, and in a way, you're breaking the alliance. It's the beginning of the end, frankly. Any time that we start to get, this is a really horrible rule for toxic relationships. Anytime that we start to get healthier and learn to meet our needs better, we are already starting to end the relationship because they don't want that. They want you to participate in their illness with them. So you doing good things for yourself, you building relationships, you starting to have hobbies and a life outside of them, and figuring out how you're going to like cope with being ill alone, or if you have surgery, how you're going to face surgery alone. You doing all these types of things is the beginning of the end, because you learn that you don't need them. You can do this without them. But you're also saying to them that you're not participating in the drama anymore. You're not getting into this with them anymore, because they want that competition with you, which is really, really hard. This is a great question. I love this question because I'm a psychologist. So you're talking to me. Can a narcissist who marries a therapist change, even if they're covert or grandiose or whatever type? There's I think 6 or 7 subtypes. So covert or vulnerable narcissist is what we call them now. Vulnerable narcissists. We don't call them covert, but most people think of them that way. Then there's the grandiose, there's the antagonistic, there's the communal or the hero, and there's a few other types. But can they change if they're in a relationship with a therapist? Well, I can tell you, I threw myself in. If you want to read the book Love You More, that's up in the top of the corner for TikTok. I put it up there. I worked for 2 years. He was in treatment for 2 years. 2 years, and nothing changed. What happened is he got good at weaponizing treatment and got better at hiding. Yeah, there are that many. Someone says there are that many of them. Absolutely. I'm taking, Dr. Ramani is rolling out a continuing education for certification in narcissistic abuse training. So soon, I think like beginning of next year, you'll be able to know which of us on TikTok and social media are actually certified to be educating and helping you recover. And I've enrolled in that certification. So I just got off 8 hours with her yesterday, and she was talking about the different subtypes. It was very, very fascinating. And they're constantly changing because we're actively researching narcissism. There's so much that we don't know about it. We know it's biosocial, but it's highly complex how this develops, extremely complex. Somebody just asked, how do you know if you're a narcissist? Well, I have a short survey, a free short survey. It's in the link in my bio. And for those who are on YouTube, I'll put it in the thank you guys. I appreciate it. I'll put it in the notes for YouTube. And it's in the link for Instagram. So if you'd like to know, maybe if you're the narcissist, you can take it. But here's another way to use that survey. Maybe you're wondering if your partner's the narcissist. Well, then answer the questions from your partner's perspective. And then you'll be able to kind of have a sense of a gauge. It will actually give you an answer of no narcissism, or if there is some mild, moderate, or extreme. It'll let you know that. I actually don't tell you if you're severe. I just say if you're moderate and higher. But the higher your score, the more severe the symptoms are. Yeah, thank you. Dr. Ramani is fantastic. It was amazing sitting with her yesterday, and it was live. So we actually were, online with her live, and I will be this fall. I don't know if it's live training or if it's going to be remote training, but it was really, really amazing. Oh, Sherry Elizabeth, I'm so glad you're here. She says she's new to this material. Is my number on that survey? Brian, my email is listed everywhere. It's at hello@kerrymcavoyphd.com. You can always email me. I'm very easy to reach. Meryl says, you can't be upset at their crap. They make themselves the victim. They do. And then on my way said, he used to accuse me of not being on his side out of nowhere. That's a good point. On my way. See, that's part of the competitiveness. They also compete with the fact that they say that you're their worst fan. You let that one sink in for a second. It's not just that they have to win at being the biggest failure or the biggest loser in the room. They also have to be the one that says, and you're not doing enough. They'll accuse you of being inadequate. So watch about that. That's another really devastating part of being in a relationship with covert narcissism, is that you're always failing. They make sure you feel like you're never enough. You can't do it right. So the criticism for the grandiose narcissist comes in a standpoint of they're doing you a favor to make you a better person. But the covert inverts it. Everything about the covert is an inversion of the other. Think of the inversion would be, instead of making you better, they would say, you're never enough. You're the worst. You're the biggest failure. You're failing them at coming through for them, that you don't understand their angst and pains. That's so it's all about, they need to be the worst, and they need to then kind of capitalize on their isolation, on the aloneness, all of that. They're in the worst position. Absolutely. By the way, if you guys find yourselves in these positions and you're really looking to get help to become, you're looking to get out of it, you want more support, you want to start healing, I have two opportunities. One is Toxic Free Relationship Club. We meet every week for 1 hour, called office hours. There's also a 24/7 online support with each other. It's just filled with benefits, filled with it. It's less than one coaching call a month. So think of the fact that you get 4 hours with me online as a group for less than one coaching call a month. And that's called Toxic Free Relationship Club. The other way to get benefit is I'm launching next week a 12-week healed and empowered group coaching. So if you're really like trying to jumpstart your healing, but you're finding that you're ruminating a lot, you have all this unresolved leftover anger, you don't know what to do with the guilt, you feel like a lot of sadness and so much shame, and you want practical skill building, and you want to meet with a small group of people with me live for 12 weeks, consider joining up. That starts next week, Thursday night. So I'm super excited about both of the opportunities. I think they are really, really going to be helpful. Yes, if you're the narcissist, there are things that you can do, and therapy is a big one for that. I would highly recommend that you get into Psychology Today, to the directory, and look for a therapist that specializes with dealing with personality disorders in your area. Absolutely. Oh, I'm so glad, William. William's from UK and he's happy to be here. And I'm really glad that you're hanging out with us too. Yeah. And Jazz Vandercoop, it is a process. We always are constantly learning, definitely. Somebody's been asking, can I talk about what covert narcissistic abuse does to a child? I'm assuming, Ray, that's what you're asking. What happens when it's happening to a child, not happening to when it's to adults? Yeah, that's really a toxic dynamic. I'm going to have to pause and shift my thinking about that for a second. So, children should be focusing on the developmental issues of their age. Like 4-year-olds are busy getting ready for school, and they're learning their numbers and their alphabets, and they should be focusing on playing and having a lot of imagination and all of that, learning to read, all that kind of stuff. And they think about the 10 or 7 to 10, 12-year-olds, they're trying to master the basic skills that you think that you learn in school, math, reading, writing, history. They're trying to just get a lay of the world. Their minds are developing. It's the Piaget stage of cognitive development. So they're kind of really learning about how to synthesize simple problems. But what happens when we are in these toxic relationships or toxic families, it becomes a dynamic about safety. Kids can't focus on what they should be learning developmentally because they're worried about what's happening at home. They're worried about how safe they are. So if you can imagine, so here you got to pick whether they're a grandiose or a covert narcissist for a parent or both parents. You think about what's happening. The focus is on trying to keep that parent happy, trying not to end up scapegoated or feeling uncomfortable because of the unfair spotlight, knowing that you don't deserve the golden child. By the way, no golden child likes being the golden child. That's not a huge benefit. Golden children know there's nothing special, know that it's all unearned and it could be taken away just like that. I watched my sister be the golden child and I knew she was miserable, miserable. I happened to be the scapegoat most of the time. She was the golden child. Both people are miserable in those relationships. Both group people can't be themselves. So here you've got this family that has rigid roles, is not dealing with emotions well. There's a lot of like instability, drama, and lack of safety. Parents can't focus on the kids because they're focused on the crisis in the relationship. That really leaves the child, even if there's no direct abuse of the child, it leaves the child feeling stressed, feeling very unsafe, feeling like they have to like keep their issues to themselves, that there's really no one home, no one there for them. They really feel you feel the golden. So you were a golden child and you loved it. Well, I'm glad at least it was good for you. For my sister, it was not good for her. I felt really bad for her, actually. She felt bad for me and I felt bad for her. But there's just not, there's a lot of danger. So as a result, children learn that they have to please the parent. So there's kind of two things that happen. There's some kids who will just like, actually three things I can think of. There are some kids that will say, you know what? I'm just opt out. I know that nobody will like me. I know that I'm going to be the black sheep, and I don't care. I'm going to do my thing. I'm going to become rebellious, and I'll just opt out. You got the other group. This is what my sisters and I did. We became really perfect. We tried to be everything they ever wanted so that this could be just, there was no problems. And by the way, neither works. You can't be good enough because narcissists you can't please. And when you opt out, then you're on your own and you're handling adult situations that you shouldn't be handling and there's no one there. So that's really, really bad. And plus on top of it, you're having your self-esteem totally trashed because they see you as awful. Or you disappear, you become lost. That's one of my sisters did that. They just faded into the background and tried to have like, don't, if you don't see me, maybe you'll leave me alone. But all of this that doesn't work because narcissists are insatiable in their needs. So they're constantly pressing their kids to be part of the supply. And it puts the kids in a terrible, terrible bind. And that's why we come back to say, if you're the healthy parent and you're debating, did I stay or do I go? If you guys didn't see my YouTube video that put out last week, 7 reasons why you should consider leaving. I mean, I want to warn you, I cry. It's a trigger warning. It's a very intense video, but I wished my mom had made a decision to leave. I really do. And she didn't. And the drama never stopped, and I just felt kind of like I couldn't really get my needs met. So it's tough. My channel is Kerry McAvoy, Ph.D., the same as it is everywhere. Somebody asked how to join the club. The club's easy to join. There's a link in my bio for everybody except for YouTube. You just go to the bio and it's called Toxic Free Relationship Club. Like I said, it is the cost of less the cost of one coaching call a month. So be aware that's not cheap. And if there's some financial reasons why you can't afford that, please contact me. I'm very willing to negotiate that. I don't want the fee to be an obstacle. So please, if you feel like, hey, I think this will really benefit me, please contact me and we can work it out. So can I talk more about the narcissist psychologist's husband and his narcissist family? Yeah. So I want to put a warning out to all therapists. This is a hunch. This is just Carrie's theory, okay? Just my theory. One of the things I have noticed is that, okay, so if we talk about psychopaths who are doing really, really bad things, like criminal things, after a while, whatever criminal thing they do, they get bored with it. That happened with Ted Bundy. Ted Bundy got tired of his shenanigans that were really awful. And so he began to play with the FBI. He thought, can I outsmart who I consider the smartest people in law enforcement? And can I one up them? See, again, think of that narcissist. They always want to be one up. They get bored because they're very restless people, very empty, restless people. So they're always looking for the latest thrill. And the more psychopathy they have, in other words, the more psychopathic or sociopathic they are, the more restlessness, more emptiness there is, the more likely they're going to be really pursuing an adrenaline rush. So I think this is what happens with narcissists. Narcissists are looking for supply. They're looking for relationships. That's why there's so many of us have been victims, because they go through a lot of relationships. If you've seen that video I put out, I think there's roughly somewhere, it's not just me saying this. I've heard Sandra Brown say this. There's roughly 130 to 160 million from narcissistic abuse victims. And Andrew, I would love to have you be here, but we're not welcoming that toxicity. So any more comments from Andrew, please let me know, guys, because I don't watch every comment. We will then exclude him from this conversation. But so there's loads and loads of abuse victims. So my warning is this. I think just like the psychopath gets tired of whatever they're doing and they starts to play with the FBI, I think narcissists get tired of looking for the ordinary person and they decide to one up it and they go for therapists. I have noticed that. I've noticed there's a theme of therapists who ends up in a narcissistically abusive relationship. Now, some of you could say, well, maybe therapists get into therapy and become psychologists or social workers because they are trying to heal themselves. And so maybe they're broken people and then they don't make good relationships. But, and there is a little bit of truth to that. I have to admit, I did see that in graduate school, that there certainly is that population who seek to be therapists. But those who stay therapists, like long-term, get into it and do well, you have to be pretty healthy to do it well. You can't really run a business and not have decent boundaries and know how to like interact with people. And so generally most therapists are pretty healthy people. But I have noticed there is a lot of therapists who are in relationship with narcissists. So watch out for that. I know that mine deliberately was looking for somebody who was both a widow and a psychologist. He's actually targeted me. He told me he was targeting me, which I should have heard that. I didn't really like pay attention when he said that. I thought, oh, he's complimenting me. And that was my naivete, unfortunately. So, okay. Well, Andrew, I wish you really all the best, but bye-bye. Anyway, we do get the trolls and we will got to watch out for them. Yeah. And that's the other thing. Do you realize, have you heard, I asked two different specialists. So I talked to Sandra Brown because I had her for a webinar. So I actually get to once in a while talk to her. And I said, Sandra, so how much of the percentage, by the way, she wrote the book, Women Who Love Psychopaths. She did that massive study in Purdue University, and she has this Institute for Relational Harm. So if you're interested in that, you can find her on Facebook for that. She said that 20% of the world is predatory, 20%. And then my supervisor in my early training years was the chairman of the psychology department for the whole state that I was operating in, where I have my license from. And so he got to see disciplinary cases. So therapists who get into trouble. That's what he was dealing with, therapists who got into trouble. And I asked him, so I said, doctor, how many people do you think are actually healthy? What's the percentage of the world that's healthy? Would you believe he said 7%? So think about it. 20%, 1 in 5 people is predatory, meaning not just competitive, but highly competitive. And then 7%, only 7% are actually really healthy. So there's a lot of people kind of in the middle. So that you have to be super, super careful. When we get into these relationships, you got to really, really be careful. So just know that when you're out there and you're meeting people, that there is this level of dangerousness that we have to ask ourselves this question. Why does this person want a relationship with me, and what might else they be seeking here? I think we need to ask that. I think to not ask that, just to assume, this is the error I made before I met that toxic person, to assume people are always good and they have good motives is really naive. And that's not true. I mean, we know that when you look in politics, there's a lot of not good people. Anything that happens in politics, you have to ask, how does that benefit them? I've been watching the show on, see who's running it. It's called Lioness. Oh, it's Paramount. Paramount's running a show called Lioness. It's about the CIA. And they're always asking who's benefiting what. How's this relationship working? And I think we need to get a little more. Do we need to be paranoid? No, but I think we need to be more savvy, definitely. Narcissist Hex wants to know that if he can promote his channel, you certainly can put your channel name up on YouTube. I don't mind that you do that. I don't want you spending lots of time taking up the chat doing that, but I certainly don't mind you saying, hey, I'm here and I'm doing this. That'd be great. So yeah, somebody's saying he's been dating. I'm gonna go back to, you're very intimate in my answers. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. What is your name? I know that you are a regular on my live, and I'd love to know your first name. And you probably have told me, and I'm sorry, I don't remember. Yeah, this is a really interesting comment. And so Nazimet says her partner was really great with the clients, but horrible with her. He'd yell, kick, and break doors, and even spit on her and more. Why do they do that? Well, that's because, that's part of, people will say, oh, narcissists can't just help themselves. They just can't help themselves. Well, no, yeah, they can, because anybody who can't help themselves would be losing it everywhere. It wouldn't be just selective. You wouldn't just see bad behavior at home and then bad and no good behavior at work. That's selective. They're choosing to lose it. They know they have to hold it together. Why does love bombing happen? I mean, granted, there's the idealization of, they think that you're going to be the perfect person and they're really hoping that you're going to meet every wish and dream of theirs. But it's not that you don't irritate them. You do. I'm sure you make moves that are, not great moves in those first few weeks and months that you meet them, but they hold it together and they don't show you that part. It's intentional. Unfortunately, it's very, very intentional. Yeah. So Narcissist Hex. Well, nice to meet you, Narcissist Hex. I appreciate that. And I'm glad that you're here, and that I hope that you have a chance to kind of share your expertise as a narcissist and how you're healing, and also offering insight into helping victims to know how to spot it. I think that's the best place for narcissists, by the way. I'm going to offer my 2 cents worth. I know you didn't ask for it, but since you're here and you're promoting your channel, I'm going to take this moment. I think narcissists have a place on these platforms to help us understand their behavior better. I worry about narcissists who think they can help victims because they've been narcissistically abusive to victims. Be really careful about that. And I think there's risks of that being an opportunistic relationship, and we need to be very, very careful. So I love it when I see narcissists inform about bad behaviors and the manipulations and the behind the scene, the questions that victims have. I think that's super helpful, because we don't necessarily think that way, and it's helpful to understand why the reaction is the way that it is. But I do worry about when they think that they have answers for victims and they get into a relationship with victims, because I see that as possibly opportunistic, and I worry about that. I do worry about that. Yeah, you're welcome. And thank you so much for the donations. I do deeply appreciate that. So terrible mess as I get told to hurry up and get my words out. He's losing interest. I'll bet you that when that happens, that you can't speak. I bet it just totally tongue ties you up like I'm doing now. I bet you are completely undone when somebody starts to say, hurry up, I'm losing interest. How terrible. But that's a perfect, thank you so much for that badge, by the way, Devon 411. I appreciate that. That's a perfect way to really criticize you without you being able to say you're being criticized. Seriously. Because think about that. They can say, I didn't do anything. I just said I wanted you to speak faster. How is that being critical? How's that causing you problems? I mean, sheesh. That's very, very manipulative. Very. And it's going to make you're already in a freeze mode because you don't feel safe. Your regulatory system is highly activated. Whenever that happens, we start to move in a shutdown mode. So your prefrontal cortex is going offline already. It's going offline. Have you guys noticed that you start to stumble over words? You can't put things together. You can't think your way out of a box. Seriously, because you are in flight or fight, fawn or freeze mode. And when that happens, our whole body moves into protection, self-protection. So that means speech is a problem. That's why you're not speaking much. That's why you're shutting down. And then he adds that extra, and I know it's he because for your situation, it's a he. It could be she. They add that extra pressure of making you want to perform or show up. Wow. What a great move to make you feel like a piece of shit. Seriously. So thank you for sharing that. I'm really glad you pointed that out. It's a powerful manipulation. Mine did that too. Here's how mine did that. He said, you should bring these things up when they happen. Whenever I'd catch him doing something really, really bad, I would take hours, maybe a half a day or a day to work my courage up because, okay, how many of us know it's going to go good? You're going to bring up a really bad subject that they're doing that they shouldn't do. Do we think that's going to go well? No. On top of it, we're in a state of shock that it happened. So we feel betrayed. And then on top of it, you're going to bring it up and then they're going to have to cope with their shame because you're calling them. Oh my goodness, it's going to be a disaster. So I would take all this energy. I wouldn't have any words. I'd take all this energy to have to bring it up. And then he would say, you know what the problem is here? You didn't bring it up when it happened. You need to bring it up when it happened because you bringing it up a day later or 2 days later, then that's beside the point. That's way too late. I'm thinking, I can't. I physically cannot speak. I don't even know what I'm feeling. I'm overwhelmed by the trauma that's happening. So be very, very aware that you do need time. When something shocking that happens, you need time to process it. Don't let yourself get into the bind. If they push you like that and start to kind of pressure you and gaslight you like that, you have to just say, hey, I won't do any better and won't be any faster. This is the way that it works. They're not going to be happy about that, unfortunately, and that's a sign that you're in. Somebody just posted a really great video. It said, ask this question. How do you know you're in a toxic relationship? When you feel fear bringing anything up. When you feel fear bringing anything up, that's how you know. Hey, Tammy, tomorrow, watch your mailbox, Tammy. It's going to be there tomorrow. I'm pretty for sure. So yeah, watch your mailbox. Deeb, I can't wait to have you join the club too. That'd be awesome. That would be really, really wonderful. Someone keeps asking me the 3 levels of a covert narcissist. The reason I have not answered the 3 levels of a covert narcissist because I don't know that there are 3 levels. I would love you to say more about what it is you're referring to. I've not heard that, so I don't quite know how to respond. William the Caterpillar. Oh, I love that name, by the way. Yes, it's a death by 1,000 cuts. They'll tell you how you should be doing things different, how you should be faster, how you should confront them over the other issues, how you should have asked permission, or why you didn't talk about that. Absolutely right. They will not respect your individuality or your autonomy, your free agency, your free will. They're not going to respect that. You're going to feel like you're in a cookie cutter and in a pressure cooker at the same time. So Jelly Bean's asking a great question. How do we get over the discard? Can you say more about what it is that's hurting you about the discard? Yeah. Narcissist Hex says, "Nope, we'll never allow you to speak freely." Yeah, well, because that certainly for the narcissist keeps the narcissist safe. Then you can just throw it all out. If they don't speak it the right way or speak it fast enough or tell you what you need to hear, then you can say it's not valid. That's a really great protective mechanism for a shame-based person. Absolutely. Let me go back and make sure I didn't miss anything on. We have a very busy chat today. So, oh yeah, let me know, Tammy, when you get it. I'm super excited. Yeah, Tammy, what Tammy did, and this is really a novel idea. If you want a signed book from me for Love You More, you can order a book and have it sent to me. You'd have to contact me directly, have it sent to me, and I will sign it for you and then mail it to you. And believe it or not, I still make a little bit of money doing that. Not as much as I would if you just bought it, but if you do want something signed, I'd be happy to do that. So I'm still trying to find the rest of the question for Jelly Beans. I'm sorry, I keep touching the microphone, so you probably are getting all this popping. I don't mean to be doing that. It's nice for me to just to get a about the question of the discard. I was curious about how the discard is really throwing you. I can tell you about how it threw me. I mean, so when we stand way back about what we want in a relationship, we get into relationships to be vulnerable. We're looking for someone to love us, to feel accepted, to feel like someone's augmenting our lives, making it better, definitely making it better. The hard part is, a discard says that all of that's not going to happen. So there's a loss of that. You're not getting any of those things, but also there's also the loss, and it feels like it's actually a narcissistic wound for us. So everybody can be narcissistically wounded, not just oh, bye, Ray. So good to have you here today. Not just narcissists. We all have an ego and we all have some shame. That's true for everybody. We're kind of on a spectrum of narcissism, by the way. Nobody has none. We all have a little bit. But when we get discarded, it basically said it can feel like something's wrong with you. And you have to process that and to know that, no, there wasn't anything wrong with you. It was a relationship that failed. And that we always have potential to grow and learn. But when a narcissist discards you, they do make it feel personal because they offload their shame. So we both feel shame. Partners always feel shame when a relationship ends, like it's a failure, that feeling of failure. And some of us don't know how to deal with it. When we don't know how to deal with our feelings, then we offload it. And then we make it's all the other person's problem. They failed. That's why it didn't work. They failed. And we have to know how to cope with that and not over own it. And I'd highly recommend, by the way, Jelly Bean, that you consider joining the group coaching that starts next week on Thursday evenings, because we're going to be talking about all these parts and pieces to healing to a relationship, how to practically deal with that, how to deal with the guilt, the embarrassment, the shame, the anger, all of that. It's called Healed and Empowered. It starts next Thursday night. We're going to meet for 12 weeks. And I'm super excited about that. Yeah. I'm trying to see what other questions have come in. Oh, Mariel says her partner even said to her that she didn't even know how to cut a tomato right. Mine told me, and I have to preface it this. Remember, I raised 3 boys and I had a marriage already before. I had a long-term marriage for 31 years where it was a traditional marriage. So I was the house, in a lot of ways, I was the housekeeper for the marriage. He didn't do laundry. I did laundry. And then he passed away. And so, but imagine I had a family of 5 and I took care of all the laundry for a family of 5 for 30 some years. My partner, who didn't raise his kids, wasn't really part of any family for any length of time, said that I didn't know how to hang my clothes right. He had to give me a lesson on laundry and how to hang his clothes. Oh man, I just stared at him. I didn't say anything. I just thought, oh, I don't. Yeah, this is just it's too funny. It's actually too funny. I thought it was one of those moments where I just tried to have like not have any smirk on my face and look at him seriously and like because I knew it would go bad. That's back when I wanted the relationship to work, so I was trying to make it work when I should have just thought cut and run. Definitely, So absolutely. Somebody asked about. Let me ask the question. Oh, I keep touching this and it comes up the wrong thing. Yeah, make sure. So one of the ways to do with the discard is just I agree, do things that you enjoy that are good for you. Oh, and it's kind of like I'm sorry that that went sideways. Oh, great. Poor TikTok. Yeah, my because oh, there, it's a green screen. Yeah, because I touched the screen, it moves. All right, there we go. Yeah, definitely helps to have it definitely helps to do other things and develop a hobby and start to make relationships. One thing I did, Jelly Bean, is I got on meetups. I found that there were groups of women looking for relationships, like they called themselves in my area, females over 50 looking for friends. I mean, I found that was really a great way to get out and go new restaurants that I hadn't gone. I didn't know the area, help introduce me to the area. So, yeah, it's really, really helpful to do that. Oh, it's so great to chat with you too on my way. Very, very much so. We're going to be wrapping it up in another 5 minutes. So, if there's any, oh, then he volunteered to hang laundry. Yeah, mine offered that he would do laundry, but here's the thing. I didn't want him. Oh, well, thank you. Actually, I'm 61 narcissist hex. I just have, there's my ego. I have to everybody know that I'm 61. Yes, I'm fortunate that way. Got good genes, but I wouldn't let him do the laundry because I knew that he would sabotage my clothes. I knew that he would make sure that my favorite clothes that I he would ruin, and I didn't want him ruining my clothes. So there's no way I'd let him near my clothes. I saw him sabotage other things. That see, there's the partner that I was with, I believe thoroughly had a lot of psychopathic tendencies, but he also was a lot of covert narcissistic tendency, and that's a great covert narcissistic thing to do. That passive aggressive move. So be careful about that. So if you're in a relationship with someone who's a covert narcissist, they'll sabotage things. They'll make sure that they're late for you. They'll slow you down and make you late. They'll make sure things go wrong or break so that you always feel like you're trying to fix things or you feel like you can't get anything off the ground. They're going to make sure that you are just that things come apart, that you're not successful. A covert narcissist is now called a vulnerable narcissist. A vulnerable narcissist. Exactly. They'll weaponize incompetence, but they'll also sabotage your success. Very much so. You lost the privilege of doing his. I love that you're laughing. You're laughing all the way to not going to that washing machine. That's for sure. Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. What did they try to come back after they discard you? Absolutely. A lot of them do. A lot of them do. How is that vulnerable? Me wants to know how is that vulnerable? The vulnerability has to do with instead of being the best or the most superior, they're entitled to their failure. They're entitled to being the biggest loser. That's how so they win on being the worst. They're the one that has the sickest in the room. Things go the most awful and they really create a lot of dependency with you. I'm glad, Ma, that you've been 3 years no contact. I sure he does start find ways around your Gmail with being able to find ways to still smear you because, they're very good at that. It's very difficult to completely get them out of your life. Well, thank you so much for the rose. I find that AI trend that's on TikTok hilarious, just hilarious. So now whenever you guys give me a gift, I'm always like, I think of the AI. It's funny. Yeah. Yeah, the envy and the jealousy with the coverts is really unreal. I agree with you, Erica. It is kind of like a ultimate different level. I mean, they're all competitive and they're all very jealous, but yeah, it's see one of the things that's happening in a covert's mind, overt meaning a grandiose narcissist is thinking about how to be superior, about shining. They're all about shining and how can they be better and how can they get more of the attention. But the covert is resentful. They're bitter and resentful, and their rumination in their head is all about how life is unfair, how you failed to see them, or how that person didn't show up. They're focusing not on the shine, they're focusing all on the rain, all and they're sort of like smoldering rage all the time. But it comes out in this passive aggressive. Yes, agree. 100% bitter. They're 100% bitter. That's very petty. That's another great word. I love that. Very petty, bitter, they're negative, and they're highly resentful. Yeah, agree. They're the eternal victim. Exactly. So watch out for that. So can you ever get them to understand that it's not your fault? No, you will never get them to understand it, because that means they have to own responsibility and own accountability. And that means facing the shame. And that's painful. You're asking them to do something super painful. So why would that would be too painful to do that? And what would be for them, what would be the benefit? That would be like the ultimate losing. They that would be so exposing that it feels like annihilation, and they don't want that. So it's yeah. So this last question, and we'll wrap it up for today. Weaponizing competence. What is it? It's a great way to offload responsibility. So if you just say, I don't know how to do something, or do it badly enough that somebody else takes over, then you just don't have to be responsible for it anymore. So say that you're in a relationship with somebody. It's not just husbands who do it. It could be wives. I know somebody in my family member is super good at it. It was not the husband in the family. It was not the man. It was a woman. So somebody in my family was very good at weaponizing incompetence. They're always helpless, and they're going to get people to rescue them. There's femme fatales do it. I can't lift this. That's still weaponizing competence. So, but yeah, so both genders do it, but I've seen kids do it too. It's claiming you can't do it or sabotaging it so it doesn't work. And it's a really great way of getting out of it. Then you just don't ever have to you don't have to take the mental load of thinking it and doing better with it. Can we do better gatekeeping on this group? I don't have mods, Becky. That's my problem with TikTok. And I don't have any moderators, because you have to have a good mod means they have to be here every Tuesday at 4 p.m. And then how do you do that? I don't really know. So I mean, I could talk to people that I know regularly are here, but we can't guarantee they're always here. Then it ends up, it's complicated. But I agree. The trolling that happens is a problem. I do agree. Oh, I'll watch for that name. So Dolphins Offense is the name. I haven't seen them. That's why I'm missing it. Oh, thank you for Stealth Warrior. You guys are amazing today. Yeah, Kate, Kate, will you DM me? There's a couple other people I'm thinking of, but I don't want you guys feeling like you have to be here every Tuesday at 4, but I would love the help. I know it gets a little wily over there, and I'm not seeing all of it. If I saw it, then I would deal with it, but I'm not seeing it. Thank you. I appreciate that. Hey guys, this is really awesome. I'm going to be checking out now and heading over to my Toxic Free Relationship Club. So if those of you are looking for more help, more personal help, more private help, that's a great way to get it live, video, face to face. We can see each other. Consider, yeah, it'd be nice to block them. Consider joining me on Toxic Free Relationship Club. And like I said, I'm always here on Tuesdays at 4 p.m. And I do announce the topic on Mondays on YouTube. So if you guys want to know what it's going to be, feel free to jump over to Kerry McAvoy, Ph.D. to see what the topic is. Then you'll know whether or not it's going to be a good one for you. Kerry McAvoy, Ph.D. That's where I announce the topics the day ahead, usually in the afternoon, late afternoon. All right, you guys, it's been so wonderful hanging out with you. I really appreciate it. Oh, thank you so much for the love. Appreciate it. You're really amazing, all of you. And sorry for the trolls on TikTok. I apologize. I wish it didn't happen. I do. All right, I'll see you next Tuesday. Bye-bye.